Picture this: a quiet morning, sunlight brushing the kitchen tiles, and a woman, still, mug in hand, staring like a stranger in her own home. Not because she misplaced something, but because, for a terrifying moment, she couldn't recognize the place she'd lived in for over 30 years. Her name is Maria. And this is where it started, not with a diagnosis, not with a doctor's visit, but with a forgotten coffee and a chilling question: where am I? In this video, you're going to understand exactly how memory loss begins. Not in hospitals, but inside everyday habits. You'll learn to recognize early signs of Alzheimer's, the quiet dementia symptoms that appear while doing something as routine as boiling water. I'll show you what senior disorientation signs really look like, and why forgetfulness in elderly is too often ignored until it's too late. More importantly, I'll share what you can do now to protect your memory, or the memory of someone you love, before it fades further. So don't just watch, pay attention. Because every scene in this story carries a warning and a window of hope. If you've ever worried about a parent forgetting too much, or felt unsure if what you're seeing is normal aging or something deeper, this video is your guide. Stay with me. What starts with a lost mug becomes a masterclass on protecting memory after 60. And today might be the moment that saves someone's story from disappearing. The morning that started like any other. It was supposed to be just another normal morning. The sunlight filtered softly through the kitchen window, just like it always did, and the quiet felt familiar. Maria got up, slipped on her slippers, adjusted her robe, and walked straight into the kitchen, just like she had done for decades. But something felt off. She stood still in the middle of the room, looking around, unable to remember why she was there. She furrowed her brow, glanced at the counter like she was searching for a clue. Yes, it was morning. She knew that much. But the reason for being in the kitchen had simply vanished. What's strange is, this had happened before. Little pauses, small slips, but the memory always came back. This time, it didn't. And somewhere deep down, something began to feel unsettling. It's easy to blame it on sleep, on aging, or just being distracted. But when these moments happen more often, it's time to pay attention. Episodes of forgetfulness in elderly may look harmless, but they're often early signs of Alzheimer's hiding inside the daily routine. The body moves, but the memory doesn't follow. And there, between the stove and the fridge, a quiet alarm started ringing, though no one could hear it yet. The mug she didn't recognize. Maria reached for the cupboard, expecting to grab her favorite mug, the one with the little blue flowers she'd used for over 15 years. But when she held it in her hands, something strange happened. She turned it around slowly, stared at the handle, the base, even brought it closer to her face, and hesitated. "Is this mine?" she whispered. A question so small, yet heavy like a stone in the chest. This wasn't just senior disorientation. It was the subtle confusion that sneaks in when the mind begins to disconnect from the familiar. That mug wasn't just ceramic. It held stories, late-night teas during storms, Sunday morning coffee with the grandkids, memories poured into every sip. And now it felt foreign. This is what memory and identity look like when they begin to slip out of sync. For anyone watching, it would have looked like nothing. Just a woman looking at a cup. But for Carlos, if he had been there, it might have been the first real sign. When even the smallest part of home becomes unfamiliar, we're no longer talking about forgetfulness. We're talking about signs of dementia in daily routine. And soon, this confusion would spill beyond the edges of a mug. The coffee that never got made. She placed the mug down carefully, as if unsure it was safe to hold. Then, like on autopilot, she moved toward the stove. The kettle was right where it always sat, but instead of filling it with water, Maria opened a drawer, then the fridge, then stared at a spoon. Minutes passed. The water was never poured. The stove stayed cold. The coffee, like her memory, was missing something crucial. This is how cognitive decline often hides, not in dramatic episodes, but in broken sequences. In moments where simple tasks become puzzles with no clear solution. Making coffee isn't hard, but when your brain forgets step 2 before step 1 is done, the world becomes a maze. And this is more than just brain fog in seniors. It's the quiet breakdown of mental rhythm we take for granted. Now imagine this happening while no one is around. No one to notice that the coffee never brewed. No one to catch the early signs of confusion. And yet these slips repeat, one by one, until the entire morning routine, the same one that held her life together, begins to fall apart. It wasn't about the coffee anymore. It was about what the missing coffee revealed. The day she called her own kitchen a stranger's house. Carlos arrived a little earlier than usual that morning. He brought fresh fruit, hoping to make breakfast with his mom. But as he stepped through the door, he found her standing frozen by the fridge, eyes darting nervously around the room. "Is this your house?" she asked him, voice trembling. For a moment, Carlos didn't understand. Then his stomach sank. She was in her own kitchen. This wasn't just forgetfulness in elderly. It was something deeper. Something that shook her sense of place, of safety, of self. Losing memory at home hits harder than anyone expects. Because when your own walls, your own photos, your own hands betray you, where do you go from there? This was no longer a momentary lapse. This was senior disorientation signs turning into a lived reality. Carlos tried to joke gently. "Of course it is, Mom. Who else would keep all this old tea in the cupboard?" But the look in her eyes didn't soften. She wasn't being playful. She truly didn't know. And that's when he realized the house didn't change. But she did. And in that quiet kitchen, dementia and independence collided in a way that would change their lives forever. The morning that changed everything. Carlos sat at the edge of the couch, holding the same mug Maria had once forgotten. The coffee inside was cold now, untouched. He replayed the morning in his head. The confusion, the fear, the question that shattered him. Whose house is this? It was no longer about early signs of Alzheimer's. It was about facing the truth. Something precious was slipping away, and it wasn't coming back on its own. He had always noticed little things. Her forgetting dates, asking about the same call twice, misplacing her keys. But this morning was different. This was no longer a pattern of forgetfulness. This was memory loss shaping her reality. For the first time, Carlos understood that aging and memory weren't just topics for articles online. They were sitting across from him, wearing his mother's face. That morning didn't end with answers. It ended with questions. Hard ones. How much more would she forget? How long could she live alone? Was this just the beginning of something bigger? That's when he knew. The coffee, the mug, the kitchen, they were all clues. And if he wanted to protect her, truly protect her, he'd need to act before what memory loss really looks like became her new normal. She stood by the fridge again this morning. Same robe, same slippers, but this time she knew why. The moment looked identical, but something had shifted. Because now someone was paying attention. Her son. Her story. You. The real tragedy isn't when someone forgets their coffee. It's when no one notices. Or worse, when we assume it's just age and walk away. So let me ask you, how many times has something like this already happened in your home? A forgotten pot on the stove? A confused face in a familiar place? These aren't just random glitches. They're signals, warnings, and each one carries a name, a memory, a laugh we thought would never fade. That's what memory truly is. Not just neurons, but legacy, connection, the soft echo of a wedding song, the way she used to say your name. So don't leave this story here. Take it with you. Share it with a daughter who's trying to help from far away, with a son who's worried but unsure, with someone who still has time. Subscribe to this channel, not just for videos but for truth, for clarity, for the tools to protect what still matters. Because memory isn't a luxury. It's identity. And it's worth everything to defend.